Oscar Piastri, perfect from him this weekend. What a great session. What a great Chinese Grand Prix we had. Oscar Piastri is firmly in the title race, in my opinion. That's right. It was a perfect qualifying, perfect race as well for Oscar Piastri. From pole, the man was absolutely superb. And yes, this is for me to tell you guys that he's actually in this title race. Oscar Piastri has arrived, ladies and gentlemen. He is here, ready to battle with Max Verstappen, ready to battle with Lando Norris as well. He did a phenomenal drive. The man, after what happened in Australia, when you have to think about it, like how unfortunate he was in Australia, how much of a heartbreak it was from P2, the man completely changed it. I think he finished second in the Sprint Grand Prix in China, and then to now get on pole for the actual main qualifying and then win the race. Didn't lose his position once, and held off George Russell pretty well, is something to behold. And just the coolness of him, the ice coldness of him. We knew this a little bit about Piastri, but then to actually see him even now with a race win in what was, like I said, a perfect weekend for him, he still was very much like, yep, thank you very much, guys, great car. And he's still remaining cool under the pressure. 23 years of age and third season in Formula One. This is the time where he's like, you know what, it's actually time to now arrive and let people know, like, I'm not just a rookie anymore. I'm now one of the serious contenders. His third Grand Prix win, of course. 1-2 for McLaren as well. So overall, McLaren had a fantastic weekend. Okay, Lando Norris, although it was a bit scary at the end because he had an issue with his brake pedal and it seemed like to be going too long or going almost to the floor. And so no matter how hard Lando Norris pushed, every time he broke, he had to make sure he could have enough sort of gap to brake and keep the car on the track. So George Russell, right at the end of the race, was literally right on his tail, even though beforehand he was about 5, 6, 7 seconds ahead of him. But yeah, McLaren 1-2. It's the first 1-2. It's the first 1-2 of the season, and also it's this McLaren's 50th 1-2 in Formula One history. It's nothing short of phenomenal. And big up to George Russell as well, who finished on the podium as well, P3, who, like I said, nearly got so close to ending, sort of finishing ahead of Lando Norris. And they went with the one-stop. These guys all went with the one-stop strategy, where in China it seemed like two-stop was the way to go. But Norris secures the third spot, gets on the podium, and that's Mercedes' 300th podium in Formula One history. So very, very impressive drive from George Russell as well. Max Verstappen P4, it was kind of in his own world. Didn't really have the pace at all, and kind of just went about his business. Not really much happening in his world because the Red Bull just simply isn't what, it's just not the Red Bull of like 22, 23, or early parts of 24. But yeah, Max Verstappen is still collecting good, solid amount of points. He's still second in the Drivers' Championship. So fair play to Max Verstappen. On the other hand, however, Liam Lawson now is in big trouble. And I know it's 2 race weekends and you're probably thinking, Pete, you're just overreacting. But when you've had the Australian Grand Prix, you've had the sprint in China, and then you've had also the race itself in China. And where my man finished, he was in like the P15, 16 before the disqualifications, which we'll get to. But the guy's going out in Q1. Even in the sprint, in Australia, he went out in Q1, right? And had the crash. Then in China, I don't think he got out of Q1, SQ1, and he didn't get out of Q1 in the Chinese Grand Prix either. So the guy's in the back. You know what I mean? He's languishing in the back. In the Red Bull, by the way. Not like, oh yeah, he's in the Racing Bulls, or he's in a Stake F1 team, or he's might be in a Haas or Williams or whatever, like that, Alpine, whatever. No, this man is driving a Red Bull. The Red Bull that Max Verstappen wins titles with. The Red Bull that Max Verstappen has won 4 in a row with. And it might sound harsh, but listen, let's call it what it is. Liam Lawson is not doing well. When Sergio Perez was under this spotlight, Alex Albon's, Gasly's, you name it. When these guys were under this kind of spotlight, we were saying the same thing about them. And I thought personally, I'm a lover of Sergio Perez, so I felt like, Sergio Perez was dealt a bad hand. But, Liam Lawson now is also struggling. And there's something about being number 2 to Max Verstappen that these Red Bull drivers can't seem to put together. Whether it's the car, whether it's the way the car's designed, whether it's the way the car is set up, whether, the drivability and everything else like that. If everybody's having an issue with this, then there's clearly obviously something going on there. But at the same time, Sergio Perez, remember his first year at Red Bull, was absolutely solid. Earned him a new contract at Red Bull. He was very, very good. So why we're here kind of with Lawson, it just feels like, I feel like I'm living in 2020 again, or like, 2019 or whatever. Like, I feel like I'm just living back to when drivers ridiculously struggled. And you just wonder, like, is it actually something wrong with the Red Bull itself, or is Liam Lawson just maybe not cut out for this, or for the Liam Lawson supporters out there, is it just a bit too early? You know, are we just talking too soon about this man? Should we give him some time? Should we let him get a few races under his belt, a couple of rounds, you know, different style of tracks? We'll see how he is, because let's have it right. Lawson was so impressive in the Racing Bulls. He was. You know, he cost Danny Ricciardo his seat. So the man is good. There's something about him for sure. No doubt about that. Well, I would have said P5 and P6 for Ferrari, meaning Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, but both drivers got disqualified. Ferrari have had an absolute disaster on Sunday for the Chinese Grand Prix. Now, bear this in mind, Lewis Hamilton, first and foremost, let's congratulate him on getting his first pole position for Ferrari in the sprint shootout, and then also winning his first race for Ferrari in the Chinese Grand Prix sprint. Happy days. And, you know, Hamilton winning again is almost, it does feel like we're in 2019, right? 2020, because, you know, as I was talking about these Red Bull drivers, and even this situation right here, it was a good race weekend. A good couple of days for Ferrari, at least. That Friday, Saturday was all well and good. Hamilton on cloud nine, winning a race as well as being on pole. And, you know, a Ferrari being on pole and winning the race, not even a Ferrari, but Hamilton to do that. Not because Hamilton's finished or old or anything of that nature. I don't think any of these things. But because I haven't seen it in so long, to see him do it just based on pure merit, I was like, wow, this is really awesome. Maybe Hamilton is here. Maybe he is here to come back and win a championship. I would love for him. Listen, I'm not a Ferrari guy by any stretch of the imagination. Team McLaren, as you know. But if Hamilton was to win his 8th championship as a Ferrari driver, would I be mad? No, I can't say I would be mad. I can't even lie to you. But here we are. But yes, Lewis Hamilton was disqualified because, you know, the what do they call it? The plank underneath the car was too thin. So the minimum thickness, I think, was it 9 millimeters. You have to have it thickness underneath. So all the, you know, all kind of the skidding and the bumping, I guess, along the track, the car came back too thin, which is, you know, one thing. Charles Leclerc gets disqualified because the car's underweight. Same thing with Pierre Gasly. He also was disqualified from this race because the car was underweight. It's just a bizarre, strange one. You know, like Charles Leclerc had issue with his front wing with with the end plate. I think it was on the left hand side. And Bernie Collins, who was doing sort of the broadcasting punditry for Sky Sports, mentioned because what was weird was Charles Leclerc was actually doing really well with a damaged front wing, and was almost like better pace-wise than Lewis, and it was almost like a question of, well, how's that work? How can you have a damaged front wing and you're going faster? Is it almost like, was this illegal? Like in my mind, I started thinking, is there something illegal here? There's something that's not quite right as to why this is happening. But then sort of Bernie kind of explains, like, you know, there's been a lot of tire deg on the front right tire, and then Charles Leclerc's wing with the front wing was the left hand side, and she was talking about the balance. Maybe it's like, she wasn't saying this is what it was, but she was sort of saying, look, maybe it was the balance, maybe that's what's given Charles Leclerc a bit of a uplift, or, you know, allowed him to maintain and be steady, because there's no real damage to the tires when you've got the front wing missing, but the airflow, of course, must have some sort of issue, some sort of damage. So it remains to be seen. I mean, just, yeah, the rear skid block of Lewis Hamilton, the plank underneath the car. You just think to yourself, like, what is, like, you know, do I blame Ferrari for this? I don't necessarily blame them for this, but, like, how is your luck? You know, disqualifications in Formula One are so rare. You might get 1 or 2 a season from a driver. Like, you won't get 2 from the same driver, let's say. It might be like, what, Kevin Magnussen one year, and then it might be, I don't know, Roman Grosjean. Sorry to pick on those Haas guys, but yeah. You know, it's rare as that, but for 2 of the drivers to be disqualified from the same team for 2 different things, honestly, guys, it's absolutely mad. It's absolutely crazy. And yeah, it's a stinker. And that's the thing, like, Hamilton won the sprint Grand Prix. Hamilton was on pole at the sprint shootout. And yet I'm calling Ferrari's weekend a stinker because of what took place at the Chinese Grand Prix on the Sunday itself. But yeah, even if they finish P5, P6, right? The quality, the racing, the pace wasn't really there. They didn't really like challenge the Mercedes at all. And even at some point, Max Verstappen was like hunting down Lewis Hamilton. And weirdly, Ferrari went with a two-stop strategy, whilst everybody else kind of didn't really go that way. And it was a bit like, yeah, is anybody else going to do this two-stop? No, they're not. And everybody managed to do the one-stop in the Chinese Grand Prix, which it was a bit of a surprise when it happened. But then when you're seeing loads of teams doing the same thing, you almost think to yourself, what's actually really going on? A surprise for the day definitely is the Haas team. Ocon and Behrman getting solid points for the team. Of course, disqualifications pending and all that kind of stuff. But they had a solid weekend. I think they had a good Sunday at least. Watching them, seeing Ocon, I kept seeing Ocon on the timelines, and being P7 and 8 and whatever, and I was thinking, I wonder what's going on there. Like, how is that all of a sudden working? How has he become that good in that area there? But Haas, seemed to be solid, and they gambled with the one-stop strategy. They were the kind of the first people that I kind of heard on team radio. Ayo Komatsu was talking to David Croft, the commentator there. Shout out to you, David. But yeah, talking to him about try and make this work, make this one-stop strategy work, and yeah, they seem to follow suit. So they seem to do pretty well. Weird thing that happened was Antonelli winning driver of the day. That was a bit strange. I didn't understand that. Antonelli had a good race, don't get me wrong. He had a solid week, solid race day. He was P10 for a lot of the race, and I thought, you know what? At the end of the day, like, he's doing his thing. He's a young rookie in the Mercedes. But there was a part of me that was thinking, the thing with having a rookie in a big team like Mercedes is like, are you almost sacrificing the first year of that rookie season? Because is it going to just be George Russell collecting points? Now, Antonelli's getting points, which is good. Don't get me wrong. He's finishing in the top 10s and whatnot. But, P9, P10, P8, P7, like, is it really saying anything? Is it really giving you any is there anything to really stand on with those kind of points? But at the same time, he's learning his craft as well in Formula One. And in fairness, like, I think he will still be absolutely fantastic this season. I believe he will get better and better as the season goes on. And yeah, but driver of the day, guys, come on. The driver of the day was Oscar Piastri, without a shadow of a doubt, because starting on pole, never lost his position. Even if, like, George Russell seemed to have the better getaway at the start of the race, nonetheless, Oscar Piastri kept the car ahead. And then, he won the race. McLaren got a 1-2, and I'm sitting there talking about, Kimi Antonelli getting driver of the day didn't really match up to me, if I'm honest. Jack Doohan, tough day for him. I mean, he got a 10-second penalty for forcing Isaac Hadjar off the track. Now, from what I remember of the race, I can't remember as such if Isaac Hadjar was sort of ahead when the turn happened, and if so, why didn't Jack Doohan just give the place back? Like, I was sort of there thinking, whilst he's under investigation, should he not just give the place back, and then that way we can just move on and crack on after that? And then it looked like he was under investigation for, like, kind of swerving when he was going head to head with Isaac Hadjar, sorry. But yeah, he got a 10-second penalty. I thought that was really harsh. 10 seconds straight off the bat, forcing the driver wide. Look, he locked up into a turn. I can't remember what number the turn was, but he locked up, and Hadjar was with him. Hadjar then had to obviously, kind of divert his route. Fair enough, but like 10-second penalty, I thought was just a bit mad, a bit weird. In other news, Alonso brakes, they were on fire. The brakes kind of failed on him. So 2 retirements for Alonso in a row, which is a bit crazy when you think about it. So yeah, a hard day at the office for Fernando Alonso. Didn't really do much or do many laps in the Chinese Grand Prix. Although when he had taken off his race suit and you could see the undershirt of the race suit, it was really sweaty already, and it was like, I think he did like 6 or something laps, I can't remember, but it was really like, I was so amazed, like, wow, these guys sweat off the bat quick early, and it wasn't baking hot in China at all. But yeah, I think the best way to wrap this one up though is definitely Eddie Jordan. Unfortunately passed away this week. Eddie Jordan, a massive, speaking of Aston Martin, ironically, a massive figure in Formula One, a guy who was a joker. He was the life of the party. He was somebody who, even watching the podcast with him and David Coulthard up until as recently as the past year, watching and hearing him talk, and just hearing his insight and his views on Formula One, it was very much, he felt like one of us in terms of like one of the fans, but he happened to also be, a team owner. Drove, obviously gave us the famous yellow Benson and Hedges livery. the Jordan F1 team, which then has now become, has moved on Force India and Racing Point, and is now the Aston Martin team. They're from the same place. Eddie Jordan, man, it would be absolutely missed, because I actually loved hearing his punditry. I loved listening to his opinion. He was definitely a fiery character, and he played the underdog so well. You know what I mean? And I'm sure he waved that Irish flag in Formula One for many decades. And yeah, it's a shame that he's gone. And he was actually the first person that broke. He was the manager of Adrian Newey, but he was the first guy that kind of broke Lewis Hamilton going to Mercedes from McLaren, and then also the master, sort of must be like the behind the scenes guy with Adrian Newey's contract from Red Bull to Aston Martin, which is still phenomenally huge. But yeah, Eddie Jordan will be sorely missed. He was an absolute phenomenal character, funny guy. And I'm going to miss hearing his punditry, hearing his opinion of the current state of F1, because he always spoke his mind. He always, he was very unapologetic, and he'll be sorely missed. And I hope we're going to see some more like kind of tributes to Eddie Jordan. Aston Martin, let's get that yellow livery out, man. Let's get an entire livery for Eddie Jordan for sure. But that was the Chinese Grand Prix weekend. Heavy. It was a heavy weekend. When you had the sprint shootout, you got the sprint rather, then you had the qualifying, and then the race itself. A lot to digest, especially after the Australian Grand Prix we had last week. But yeah, Formula One is truly back. We've had 2 different race winners after 2 races, one of which Lando Norris, and now Oscar Piastri. And of course, we have to include Lewis Hamilton in the middle there in that sandwich with the sprint win. Formula One is huge, man. And it's, when people say it's back, it didn't leave. It's been back for a long time, let's say. It's been back for a very, very long time. I'm looking forward to this season. It's going to be absolutely blockbuster. Comment down below what you thought about the race. Let me know who your driver of the day was, and let me know like what was your surprise, who were you disappointed with the most. I think my biggest disappointment will be the fact that Ferrari managed to get disqualified both drivers is insane. And Liam Lawson in a Red Bull being at the back of the grid, it's just not on. It's just not on. But my man of the day, of course, is definitely Perfect Piastri from pole position, winning the Chinese Grand Prix. Until next time, lights out.